And good evening, everybody. Donald Trump rocked the Bronx yesterday with his first rally in New York City since 2016. It was history in the making. Take a look.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you very much. This is some turnout. This is some turnout. And I want to thank New York's finest. They just brought a lot of additions. So we have people, thousands of people outside that can't even get in, but they'll get in eventually. We appreciate it. New York's finest. Hello, New York City, and hello to all of the incredible, tough, strong, hardworking American patriots right here in the Bronx. Who would think? Who would think? I'm thrilled to be back in the city I grew up in, the city I spent my life in, the city I helped build, and the city that we all love, New York City. And I'm here tonight to declare that we are going to turn New York City around, and we are going to turn it around very, very quickly.
Donald Trump, rallying an entire city, well received, 25,000 people there in the South Bronx, turning out to see the president thunder in Crotona Park, where he presented himself as a president for all Americans. In stark contrast to Joe Biden, the divider, Trump absolutely the uniter. And here is the 47th president.
Look, we had the greatest economy in history. Everybody here, where you have a small business or if you had a job, you were getting more than you ever made. And we had no inflation. We had no 1.4%, considered none, considered better than none, because frankly, none in its own way is a bad thing also. We had a perfect number, 1.4%. It doesn't matter whether you're black or brown or white or whatever the hell color you are, it doesn't matter. We are all Americans, and we're going to pull together as Americans.
President Trump also outlining a bold plan of action for confronting the invasion of illegal aliens across our southern border. His solution, and the only one that seems practical, mass deportations. Listen, if you will, and consider any other Republican talking this way about arguably the most important issue of our time.
Now, who would let people, seriously, who would let people come from prisons and jails, from mental institutions? They cannot stay. We will immediately begin the largest criminal deportation operation in our country's history, because this situation is sustainable by no country. No country can sustain this.
And Biden, with his plan to bring 15 million illegal aliens into the country in less than 4 years on the job, immigration is absolutely out of control. The millions of illegal aliens that he invited into the country, they are even complaining about his policies. Listen to what this illegal alien from Turkey, who crossed the border into California, had to say.
Did you have to pay a cartel?
Yes.
How much?
Around 10,000.
10,000?
Yes. In fact, the American people is right, completely true. Who come into this country, they don't know. Well, okay, I'm good, but how if they're not good? How they're killer, psychopath, else? No guarantee of that. Why, no security, no security check, no background check.
No security check, no background check. You're worrying about who's crossing the border?
Yes. Of course, me, because I'm like, people are not look normal.
Well, just incredible. And joining us now to weigh in on the illegal alien invasion is Green Beret veteran Dr. Pete Chambers. He's also a whistleblower who exposed the facts related to the Defense Medical Epidemiology database. I just want to say what a pleasure it is to talk with you again and to focus on a lot of issues that are varied in both scope and subject. But I want to start with the idea that suddenly we're to fear bird flu again. The idea that bird flu is perhaps the disease X that so many people, particularly the establishment medical community was talking about just a year ago could be on its way. Your thoughts about the seriousness of bird flu, as at least it's being discussed by U.S. public health agencies?
I'll discuss it directly with the facts. And here's the facts. There were 3 cats in the state of Texas that tested positive for avian flu after they received autopsies when they died. First of all, I can't get an autopsy for a 25-year-old that dies suddenly in the state of Texas. Are you kidding me? That's number one. Number two, we've been through Marburg. We've been through Ebola virus. We've done all this stuff. We have exposed them for that. They've dropped off of those, and now they're on the avian flu thing. That is just another it's just another false flag to get people to stay in their houses and be afraid. It's a fear tactic. We don't operate in a spirit of fear, and we're definitely not going to start now. So we've figured that game out, but we're watching it because with that typically comes some sort of other attack, and it could be an EMP attack, it could be a supposed, but we're always looking for the lines of effort and how they're going to attack from different angles. And that avian flu thing is nothing to worry about. It truly is not.
Doctor, I'd just like to turn to one issue that certainly concerns me, and that is Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's still not been held to account for what looked like an organized effort to do just exactly the wrong thing for the American people during the pandemic, including carrying out partnerships with the communist Chinese on gain of function experiments as well. Your thoughts?
So in our investigations that we're conducting in parallel with what should be going on at the Department of Defense or Department of Justice, what we're seeing is he's a cornerstone, definitely in the treasonous involvement of the weaponization of health, public health, Department of Defense health. He is key critical to that, but he is not necessarily the highest hanging fruit. And so he will be held to accountability, and we are working on that. We were just up with General Flynn just recently, 2 nights ago, discussing this on the stage as to how this accountability piece will work. And it will start at the grassroots. And that's what I work heavily on in the state of Texas with law enforcement, sheriffs primarily, to start investigating and then putting out warrants for arrest and filing charges. And this will come. We just got to get the correct sheriffs to do it. But it is in my book, this is a little bit of light at the end of this tunnel.
Well, that's encouraging news and an encouraging development. Give us a sense, if you will, why the Chinese communists suddenly are having such influence, whether it be in our elections, which is now being documented, whether it be in our public health, and managing, if you will, the World Health Organization, a UN agency, but all but under the control of the communist Chinese.
Right. The long game that China has been playing, some people call it the 100-year, long game. They're just coming to light now. This is the thing. It seems like it's just all of a sudden coming on the scene. It's not. It's been behind the scenes. I witnessed it when I was working as a liaison in Capitol Hill. I witnessed the intrusion of the Chinese into the system, into the corporatocracy, if you will. And at that point, I had nowhere to go with it other than just document it in my mind. But now that we're seeing some of these things being exposed, it seems to be a lot. But remember that their plan is not just to control from within, as far as our legislation and our privateer corporations. It's also to conduct sabotage and subversion in this country. So some of those train derailments that we saw, some of those power outages that we've seen, we have to understand that's all part of this. These are probing techniques, and I'm going to put on my military hat, probing techniques to then find out where the weaknesses are, the seams and the gaps in the infrastructure, to then bring it all together at some point, I don't know what day that is, and try to overthrow from within.
And if we then take the overlay of the balloons flying overhead that a president refused to shoot down, even though they were going over sensitive, top secret bases that they should not have had any access to, and then shooting down one balloon we know of off the coast of the Carolinas, and at the same time, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve now at a 40-year low, drained for what reason by this Biden regime? This looks highly suspicious. And millions of barrels of that oil, by the way, going to communist Chinese-linked corporations. So it becomes deeply troubling, and at the same time to see thousands of Chinese nationals decamped in northern Mexico and also entering the United States. More than 20,000, we know for a fact, military age males coming in. And for what purpose? And we're not getting answers from any of the agencies, whether it be the domestic agency, the FBI, the CIA, whomever it might be. Absolutely mute.
The number of Chinese that are in this country right now could field 10 divisions of infantry. That's how many are in the country right now. 10 divisions, whether they're armed or not. It's definitely something that we need to consider. It's why the Japanese did not decide to attack mainland United States. There are enough Americans in the United States behind a bush with a rifle. That's why the Second Amendment is so important, because these people have already infiltrated. Now I've got to find out, all of us that are in this fight, are they armed? Can they be armed?
Well, we appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much, Dr. Pete Chambers. God bless you.
Yes, sir. God bless you. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Pete Chambers, thanks for being with us. Still ahead, Paul E. Alexander. Dr. Alexander, a former Health and Human Services senior advisor who served in the Trump administration. He'll be with us coming up. New York Governor Kathy Hochul is not happy with Trump supporting New Yorkers. She called those supporters of Donald Trump, those New Yorkers in South Bronx, clowns in an interview with CNN's Jake Tapper. Watch this.
Well, I'll tell you, it won't make a difference at all, Jake, and that is for Donald Trump to be the ringleader of and invite all his clowns to a place like the Bronx. New York will never, ever support Donald Trump for president. We know him better than anyone, and that means we understand what he's all about is just for himself.
The clowns, the real clowns are the Marxist Dems like Kathy Hochul. The real clowns are like, well, Eric Adams, the Democrat Party, the Marxist Dems, who've turned New York City into a circus, and the state as well. Hochul wasn't the only politician who had her, quote, basket of deplorables moment. Natalie Stone, the former deputy mayor of Tabernacle, New Jersey, called the state's rural residents inbred imbeciles. How does that work for a politician, huh? Well, Stone made the comments in a 2020 Facebook post that recently resurfaced. My guess is it was resurfaced for her. Stone said New Jersey's hinterlands are filled with, quote, incestuous, illiterate, mentally deficient, inbred imbeciles, supposedly responsible for generations of morons and prostitutes, end quote. That's pretty strong. That's pretty strong, particularly since I live in the country. The backlash that little tirade sparked forced her to resign, and adios, good riddance. It couldn't happen to a much worse human being. In other news, a team of researchers known as Fractal claims communist Chinese-linked organizations are spending enormous sums of money to defeat Donald Trump this year. Apparently, they didn't like the Trump policies, including the tariffs and the fact that he meant business when he said to the world community, stop it. This network is outspending the Republican National Committee on Voter Registration, get out the vote efforts, and ballot harvesting operations in key swing states. Now imagine that. Chinese money pouring in to our election, and what is the Republican Party doing about it? Well, your guess is as good as ours. At this point, it appears the answer is absolutely nothing. Well, UCLA is one of those universities where they can tell you all about affirmative action, what diversity and equity and inclusion looks like in practice. So let's take a look at UCLA, where half of the medical students are failing basic competency tests. Whistleblowers telling the Washington Free Beacon that race-based admissions have turned UCLA into a failed medical school. In some cohorts, more than 50% of students are bombing their standardized tests on things like family medicine, internal medicine, pediatrics, and emergency medicine. At this rate, having a degree from UCLA might be a reason to get a second opinion. This is deeply troubling, and we're inviting UCLA spokesman to join us here to discuss this. But this is about diversity, equity, inclusion, affirmative action, critical race theory gone mad when you simply can't teach medicine to medical students. The World Health Organization is aggressively pushing to finalize a global pandemic treaty. It's a treaty, of course, that would benefit the UN and cut U.S. sovereignty by substantial margins. If this were to ever see the light of day, that is, go into effect, the next pandemic would see nations surrender their sovereignty to the corrupt international bureaucracy that is the United Nations and the World Health Organization. And that, of course, is exactly the point of this treaty. Joining us now is Dr. Paul E. Alexander, former Health and Human Services Senior Advisor who served in the Trump administration. He also worked as a COVID pandemic evidence advisor to the Pan American Health Organization. Dr. Alexander, good to have you with us. Let's start with the WHO, because that is, to me, the most irritating and I think possibly dangerous development amongst many in the public health area, certainly. But the idea of subordinating U.S. sovereignty to the United Nations, an agency of the UN, the WHO, is just, to me, scary as it can be. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Lou, I want to say you've always been a hero of mine and somebody I admire greatly. And your crew for facilitating this. Rightly, I worked in the Trump administration and I'm on the Trump train. The thing about it is President Trump withdrew from the WHO when I was there, and the Biden administration reversed that. So that's why we're in this pickle, so to speak, or this discussion about WHO right now. I believe firmly that when President Trump is reelected, and he will be, President Trump will not be going the route of the WHO, that organization. So I think we need to hold off how much panic we're panicking. But what you said is correct. The idea that the United States of America, with our Congress and our Senate, our Constitution, would subordinate to the UN is outrageous, and we won't and we can't. The United States is the world leader, and I would urge Congress and the Senate and all involved to sign nothing and agree to nothing, because Trump will reverse it. I mean, I'm hearing discussions already on the inside, from on the inside. So I'm just putting that on the table.
Well, it's the strangest moment, because this administration has tried to destroy every element, every value, it seems, of what is American, and including the government itself. And simultaneously, we've got Dr. Anthony Fauci now testifying at the beginning of the month, and we're just now starting to have both visibility and the prospect of real accountability against those who use the pandemic for political purposes and for ideological purposes in the case of the Biden regime. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and again, I'm on board with you there and in agreement. I mean, I had put out a book, Presidential Takedown, where basically I made the argument from on the inside that President Trump was subverted by Fauci and Birx, WHO, all of these people to affect the presidential outcome in terms of they committed almost harikari in how they ran the lockdowns because President Trump delegated to them. Also, we know that votes were tampered with, and the outcome is not a fair count. That's the issue. Was it a fair count of the electorate? And the answer is no. And I really want the House, the Congress, and the Senate, but right now we have the House, to really firm up what they're doing. You know, we don't want people being dragged up there under oath and you're not giving them the proper questions or the hard questions. And we the American people, we want accountability. We don't just want a show. We want that at the end of this, somebody is held accountable and we see that accountability, because then it would have fallen to naught. Because What they did in COVID hurt Americans devastatingly, and we want justice. I'm part of that.
Absolutely. And we couldn't agree with you any more, Dr. Alexander, than we do. We appreciate you being with us. We thank you so much. Look forward to you coming back soon. We appreciate your time today.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, over in our nation's capital, Barack Obama making an unexpected appearance at a really big shindig at the Biden state dinner for Kenya last night. Obama reportedly didn't stay long. He left before Biden even delivered his speech. I can't believe he'd leave before a Biden speech. Now that is really missing out on entertainment. Perhaps Obama just swung by to offer Biden advice for his flailing re-election bid. Joe needs all the help he can get, but I'm sure he's been getting a lot of help from Barack Obama now for years. Otherwise, why would they call this the third term of Barack Obama? By the way, somebody should have just advised Joe against tweeting this, quote, "In America, we leave no veteran behind," end quote. That from his account on X. Apparently, Biden forgot about all those American service members killed in Afghanistan in 2021. Well, obviously, Joe Biden forgot about all those American service members, 13 service members who were killed in Afghanistan as he was cutting and running in 2021. But of course, no one else has forgotten, and all of the users on Twitter, X, roundly remembering for Joe Biden and his staff of what he did and why they will never forget. It's always good to see social media work well. Turning now to a deal you don't want to miss. As you know, Mike Lindell has a passion to help you get the best sleep of your life. After he invented the world's best pillow, Mike created those famous Giza Dream Sheets, and they are a dream. My wife and I sleep on them all the time, have for years. They are the best sheets we've ever slept on, and we believe they will be the best that you've ever slept on. Your best night's sleep, by the way, just got even better. For a limited time, you will get a queen-size set of Giza sheets for $59.98. King size, $10 more. The lowest prices in history. Mike and MyPillow employees continue to be canceled by those big box stores. Big box store sounds like an ugly name now, doesn't it? And they continue to be attacked by the national left-wing media. They appreciate all of your great support during these times and want to thank you. Mike wants to thank you by giving you free shipping on your entire order today. To get the best specials ever, go to mypillow.com or call 800-977-9152 and use promo code Dobbs. That's DOBBS. You get the famous Giza Dream Sheets, queen size for $59.98, king size $10 more. So call 800-977-9152 or go to mypillow.com, promo code Dobbs to get free shipping on your entire order today. And please join us for my podcast each day, The Great America Show. The board of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill repealing DEI mandates for all 17 campuses across the state. The Marxist leftists are not taking it well. Here's a peek.
They stand for oppression. They stand for colonization. They stand for discrimination. The police will never be for us. We are for power. We are for peace. We are for love. They are for discrimination. They are for exclusion. And they are for intimidation. That is what we're here for. We're here for love. They are directly opposed to love. They are diametrically opposed to love.
Don't push her, Sarah. Don't push her.
We're competing in the
So, what does this latest move by the University of North Carolina mean in the grand scheme of things? Is the tide actually turning against diversity, equity, inclusion nationwide? Let's bring in Professor of Political Science at Suffolk College and host of the PAS Report podcast and Campus Reform Higher Education Fellow, Nicholas Giordano. Nick, great to have you with us. It does look like, at least to the unpracticed eye, I'll put it that way, that DEI is ebbing, that it's in, if you receding, at least in many of the major colleges in the country. There are obviously stubborn holdouts, but your sense of where DEI is right now, the threat of DEI, is it waning, or is it indeed becoming even stronger?
I think it is waning. I think the tide is turning against this whole diversity, equity, inclusion push. And we've been largely outspoken about it because we see how toxic it is to our country and our people. So the UNC decided that it was going to start pulling back on its diversity, equity, inclusion programs, because I think they started to realize that when you see students tearing down an American flag and hoisting up a Palestinian flag, it took the chancellor, Lee Roberts, who I applaud, seeing that, saying that maybe it's gone a little too far. When you have students screaming about intifada and not even knowing what intifada means, they realize that it's gone too far. So we've seen a number of states and universities begin to dismantle the diversity, equity, inclusion push. But the fight is ongoing. I'm in academia, so I'm surrounded by diversity, equity, inclusion. And that's why at Campus Reform, we've been reporting so much about it. Because what it does is it poisons the mind of the youth. It makes it toxic. This idea that you're going to pit people into groups in America and then pit those groups against each other, teaching them that America is an inherently racist and evil country, teaching them that our entire concept was built on the idea of slavery. It's a false history that the left has tried to promote, and it's done enormous harm to this country, as we're witnessing with the poll numbers. Only 23% of those under the age of 30 believe that patriotism is important. Only 18% are very proud to be American. How could a country survive if its future leaders despise the country that they were born in and that they're going to lead?
It's absolutely the right questions to be asked. The problem is that people haven't been paying attention really to the answers for some years now. We go back to Christopher Rufo and his first revelations about CRT, James Lindsay, amongst others. We're looking at what has been a handful of people willing to take this up, and including yourself, to take it as a serious issue, and to reveal it to the broader public. We are looking right now at a university system, and I'm not talking about the public system, the private system, just universities across the country, that frankly, they've become indoctrination centers. Education has slipped woefully. Testing, and where we can get reliable testing, shows absolutely no interest in achievement, knowledge bases, merit. It is an appalling circumstance that is gripping much of the country still.
Well, I think you're spot on there. I mean, when you look at the numbers in the American education system, we should be ashamed of ourselves. I mean, the student proficiency levels are at all-time lows. Only 37% of graduating seniors can read, write, and do mathematics at the college level. 60% of incoming freshmen this year are going to have to take at least one remedial course of information they should have learned in high school. And the reality is that Americans know very little about the country that they've been in. So what are our schools teaching? And that's where it comes to ideology. Diversity, equity, inclusion is not an academic field. It is a political agenda. It's to develop a whole bunch of future activists that support left-wing political causes. And that's the problem I have. I have two children. I want them to grow up in America that I grew up in, that's loved and respected, an America that believes in the principles of freedom and liberty. Unfortunately, we're not teaching those principles anymore. And in my classroom, I give my students the citizenship exam the very first day of class. And only 6% of students will be able to pass the basic citizenship exam, which is relatively easy. And they can't identify the United States Constitution, whether they could distinguish between the United States Constitution and the Russian Constitution. So we are in dire straits. And that's why I think that you're seeing more and more people come out to speak against diversity, equity, inclusion. The left tries to portray it as that it's not innocuous, that it's just giving voices to minority populations. That's not true. I encourage every single American out there, look at the diversity, equity, inclusion frameworks, including in New York State, which is my state, where it explicitly says that institutional racism is in every single system, whether it's education, healthcare, government, medical, and that Americans, by and large, are inherently racist depending on the skin color they're born with. And the minority population is inherently going to be victims to those racist white people with their implicit biases. And this is where you create a tribal society. We deviate away from the idea of e pluribus unum, out of many comes one, and create a nation. And we turn towards a country like Afghanistan, where you have all these competing tribes, and ultimately that destroys nations.
Destroys nations. This one is under a vicious assault by the Marxist Dems who control the Democrat Party. It is under vicious assault by the legal profession, by academia, where there's more indoctrination than education in too many instances. And we really, again, we are not hearing from corporate America, where DEI has an amazing hold, and they're not taking responsibility for what has been a failed experiment that has to be absolutely ripped out, roots and all, from HR departments and from management doctrine within those companies. But instead, corporate America is silent. Wall Street, despite everything else, and by the way, this is a money-making opportunity for them. Just ask Larry Fink. They haven't got the guts and the decency to stand up and be leaders and say, it is time to kill DEI and return to education, to the business of business, and to leave these societal and political, ideological issues, to push them to the side and focus on what matters. Because
well, Lou, I don't mean to interrupt.
Being agents of DEI is an outrage when you talk about corporations, because it denies their fiscal responsibilities.
Well, I think we are seeing a turn in corporate America. We reported at Campus Forum earlier this year that 45% of employers surveyed in large corporations stated that they're doing away with 4-year college degree requirements for their positions. We've seen major companies like Walmart and Google, Tesla, IBM begin to move away from 4-year degree programs. We've seen states like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Virginia move away from 4-year degree programs. And what they're saying is, we don't like the students that you're graduating. They're coming in, they're ideological in nature. They don't have a work ethic. They don't believe in merit, because the colleges have destroyed the concept of hard work and merit. And so now we're not going to bother hiring those individuals, and we're going to expand our pool to find students, young Americans, that will come in and actually put in the work. And so I think corporate America is starting to push back, and some companies have announced they are doing away with their DEI programs, but also parents and students themselves. All-time confidence in higher education as a whole is at all-time lows. By 36% of Americans have confidence in the higher education system, where 64% do not. And that's reflective of what's being taught and what the students are learning in college. So these colleges better wake up, because they are bleeding enrollment, because they've become so ideological, and they are not preparing the workforce of the next generation. They're not preparing the future leaders, and they're not preparing students to meet their civic obligations once they graduate.
You know, you're exactly right. And when I was talking about the leadership of corporate America, talking about directly and bluntly meeting DEI and its advocates head on and explaining what's happened to the country. We're not hearing that from corporate and business leaders, is at least to the degree that I would want us to, in terms of going to community colleges and other, I think community colleges, frankly, and I don't mean to upset anybody, but The reality is the community colleges in this country, I think, are the biggest bargain in education, and everyone should be paying attention to that opportunity for their kids. The kids across the country should be paying attention to it, because when we start talking about $50, $60, $70,000 a year for an education that is really about indoctrination, that it isn't involved, in my opinion, and the important core education, which is always to me science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I get a little troubled that so many people are going there for an opportunity to sit in the class and talk about big words and big ideas without any connection to a reality that right now in this country is deeply threatening to their futures. You get the last word here, Nick. We appreciate you being with us.
Well, I have a piece coming out in the Hill actually next week talking about that exact thing. Notice how you don't see protest on community college campuses. You don't see calls for intifada on community college campuses, and you certainly don't see calls for death to America. And I think it's because the community college, we have students that are serious about learning. They understand the real world because they may have children. They may be returning to school as adults. They can't afford to go to a four-year school. So they take their education very seriously. And every American should consider, if you are going to send your child to a college, your best bet is a community college first.
Nick, you and I are, it's a delight to talk with you. And you and I are the first ones to talk about this. I love the fact that we agree on that. And I really want to say to parents out there, to people graduating, think about your community college, because no one should put their parents in the position of the debt loads that are that just simply are funding more left-wing nonsense and devastating nonsense. And your parents shouldn't have to do it. You shouldn't have to do it, because those debts are just so burdensome that you're basically hamstringing yourself before you get out of the starting gate, which is, of course, graduating from college. Nick, again, thanks so much. Come back soon, and we will follow you closely. And maybe we'll get some people interested in those community colleges. I like the idea. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Nicholas Giordano. Still ahead, we're going to talk with FBI whistleblower Garrett O'Boyle. And you don't want to miss a word of what he has to say. And turning now to New York City, where New York Mayor Eric Adams is defending his move to evict hundreds of illegal aliens from city shelters. Critics are calling it inhumane. Here's how Adams responded.
Second, when we were first talking about it, people said it's inhumane to put people out during the wintertime. So now they say it's inhumane to do it in the summertime. It's humane to do it in the springtime. It's inhumane to do it in the fall time. It's always inhumane to have to not be able to house 198,000 people. There's no good time. I mean, there's no good time. People are complaining. Yeah, but this is New York. Everybody complains.
Well, and the heck of it is, most of those people who are complaining actually have a beef. By the way, they are actually residents and citizens of the city of New York. The city plans to give 250 illegal aliens the boot, sparking spasms of outrage on the left. And no one does outrage better than the left, do they? In other news, Customs and Border Protection has lost roughly a quarter of its agents since 2020. Not only has Biden opened our borders to invasion, done a partnership deal with the Mexican drug cartels, and is a partner in sex trafficking, deadly drug distribution. He's also overseen the decimation of the federal agencies charged with stopping illegal immigration. Of course, he would want to get rid of them. It almost seems as if this is all by design, doesn't it? As best anyone with his cognitive impairment could design. Someone else's design, I'm sure, but he gets the credit. Well, Fox News White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich says, well, actually, she declares that the FBI was authorized to use deadly force when it raided Joe Biden's home. So let's see the movie. Let's see the pictures. Let's see the evidence. Jackie, come on. Where's the proof? We know the FBI was authorized to use lethal force during the raid on Mar-a-Lago because court documents show that. Where are the corroborating documents for Heinrich's reporting? Heinrich, by the way, cited nothing more than anonymous sources and her own strong opinion. But this stinks of an effort on her part to downplay yet another scandal for the FBI, the Department of Justice, and yes, Joe Biden. And do you remember? Jackie Heinrich is the same reporter who exonerated Joe Biden of any wrongdoing in 2020. Imagine that. Joining us now to take this up is FBI whistleblower Garrett O'Boyle. Garrett was in the U.S. Army for 6 years, deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, also a police officer for 4 years, and then an FBI agent before he became a whistleblower. Garrett, great to have you on the show, and welcome.
Sure to be on with one of the greats in the industry, so I appreciate you giving me the chance.
Well, thank you, Garrett. We're delighted to see you and to have an opportunity to talk with you. I'm watching this Jackie Heinrich controversy, saying that this is just standard procedure to go in with deadly force, and that it happened with the SWAT teams that were bearing down on the president's vacation home. It smells like pure bunkum to me. What do you think is the reality?
Well, I think Katie Heinrich is actually a little closer to the truth than most on this topic. So there's been a lot this week on this Mar-a-Lago raid topic. And also, Lou, this is actually one of the things that I made protected disclosures to Congress over. And one of the primary reasons was for the use of FBI SWAT and or their hostage rescue team, which is the most elite tactical law enforcement unit in the entire world. And so I was an FBI SWAT agent for a few years before I got unceremoniously suspended for whistleblowing to Congress. And with that background, I looked at this and I thought, why is the FBI sending a SWAT team or HRT to a former president's house? It really doesn't line up with FBI policy, because there's certain criteria that need to be met if you're going to use that type of, approach. And a former president, he has a Secret Service detail, private security detail. I've been to Mar-a-Lago before. It's not like they pat you down or anything like that, but they definitely check when you're going in. And so the FBI also can liaise with the Secret Service, which they did to some degree prior to the service of this warrant. However, this rhetoric of it being an assassination authorization and a kill order, it's really out of line, and it's misrepresentative of the truth, which we can't do. We need to speak the truth, and a lot of people out there are really missing the mark on this.
Well, I want to go take this up with you, and that's why you're here, is to examine what the truth is likely to be, because we don't get much truth out of this administration. I mean, that's just a straightforward fact. Merrick Garland said he had nothing to do with the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Then it turns out he did. Then he said that implied, and others have said as well, that it's just standard procedure to take SWAT teams into a raid on a president's home. That had never happened before. So it couldn't have been standard procedure. It might have been a procedure and that they wanted to consider it standard, but how could it be standard if they had never done it? And what person in his or her right mind in the FBI, the Department of Justice, or for that matter, the White House, would sit there and say, yes, I think we need SWAT teams, because you never know when Donald Trump is going to pull a .45 caliber and let us have it. I mean, the ignorance of this thing is just overwhelming, Garrett. I mean, it's just overwhelming.
Right, Lou. And that's part of the broader point here, is that there is enough to rightfully point out that is out of line here, because this was an unprecedented search warrant service on a former president. Like you said, it's never happened before. And so there are problems with that, especially with these strong arm tactics that were used, which I would say even includes having quote unquote news helicopters circling Mar-a-Lago during all of this. So that they must have been tipped off to some degree that this was going to happen. Now, Donald Trump wasn't there when the warrant was served. And that also ties into this broader point of this idea of this kill order or assassination being authorized on Donald Trump. It simply is not true. The FBI, without a doubt in my mind, they knew that Donald Trump wasn't going to be there. And also, I'm not trying to hold water for the FBI here. I'm still suspended by the FBI. It's been 21 months, suspended without pay. We had a whistleblower come out in November who came forward and said they tried to financially destroy and devastate me and my family, all because I was whistleblowing to Congress. So I believe the FBI needs to be abolished. I'll come out and say that straightforward. Where Donald Trump himself has recently come out earlier this month and wants to make the new FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. the crown jewel of his next administration. But now people are coming out and saying, no, the FBI was going to assassinate him. It's not true. Yes, an unprecedented search warrant service by the FBI into a former president's residence. That is step one. That is problematic. However, it's another example of the lawfare that is being imposed against Donald Trump. The FBI, the DOJ, they're doing this under color of law. So an FBI agent writes a search warrant affidavit for Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence in search of these classified documents. They take that to a judge, a federal judge, who signs off on it and says, yep, you have your probable cause to go do this. This is where we have a problem right off the bat. However, they're saying, nope, we have a judge who signed this. This is legal. At that point, once a search warrant is signed, it triggers a series of events for an FBI agent. One of those is filling out the FD 888, the Law Enforcement Operations Order. And it is standard procedure to include the deadly force policy of the Department of Justice in that form. It's 100% included.
Whoa. I know, I understand the deadly force policy, and I can't recite it verbatim, but I understand it. And I think every agent obviously does. But that is not a standard policy in terms of going after a president of the United States who has Secret Service agents also protecting him, as well as private security, as you said. And for the idea, one of the things I think is so ignorant about the FBI is when they go after private citizens, and it's happened memorably, I think it was a year ago in Utah. They went in guns blazing and killed a man. And they had, a lot of reason to be there to serve warrants and so forth, but this should never have been a shootout. And the ignorance of the FBI in these situations it's absolutely palatable. I don't think we can defend Christopher Wray or any, and look, I understand you're not carrying water for the FBI, you're carrying water for the truth. The truth is that the American people have a right to know how an ignorant attorney general could sign off on a deadly force for a president of the United States protected by Secret Service, bring with them a medic, have the trauma center identified, and just say, that's standard procedure. He looked like a man wanting to kill something. What do you think?
Well, again, it is standard procedure for once a warrant is signed in the FBI, it doesn't matter who it is. Because here's what their argument would be, Lou. They would point to the
What do you mean it doesn't matter who it is?
I will explain.
Okay,
I'll explain.
We're out of time. I've got to get you to give me a tight answer. What in the world? You're saying it doesn't matter if it's a president or if it's a victim sitting out in Utah? Come on.
Right. The FBI will point to the Equal Protection Clause and say, we will treat everyone the same under the law. Now, we know that isn't true. We know that isn't true. However, when it comes to... It's not a defense of it, Lou. It's not a defense of it. This is the government.
What I'm saying to you is it's a rationalization, and that's the same thing. Why in the world would you expect the FBI not to take account of the fact that a man is a former president, has Secret Service around him, has Mar-a-Lago employees around him, Mar-a-Lago guests, and guys walk in with M4s? Are you kidding me?
I'm not. This is exactly why I whistle blew about this to Congress, is because it is so problematic. However, there is a lot of nuance here that I think a lot of people are missing. The deadly force policy is included in every operations order in the FBI, and they will say it's because it's our standard procedure. I'm not saying it's okay, Lou. I'm
So do you
saying that
think the Attorney General could overrule that standard procedure?
I
Take
think
cognizance of the fact that he was going after a president in an unprecedented manner, a raid on his home, an attack on his family, his guests, his staff, for crying out loud.
right. I
It's
think
just, Garrett,
the attorney general absolutely could have overruled that. And we see the disparity in the classified documents case with Joe Biden, which he retained when he was not even president. So there's still
well,
the
we see
argument
another disparity, by the way. We see another disparity. And just to bring this into focus, the disparity is Donald Trump has been the victim of an FBI conspiracy to overthrow the federal government in his presidency. He's been persecuted by the left, the deep state, and members of the FBI and Department of Justice for 9 damn years. Garrett,
I agree. I agree with you there.
You've got to look at this thing as it is, not as you would want it to be. Standard procedure and uniform response to stimuli may be wonderful in one world. It is absolutely mindless when you're dealing with a president and a corrupt administration that is doing everything it can to keep him out of a campaign for the presidency. I take your point, and I applaud your intent. But man, this is somebody has got to get some heads screwed on straight at both the FBI and the Department of Justice. And if President Trump builds a monument to the FBI in Washington, D.C., I'll be the first to be suggesting that he figure out something else to do with the money. And I imagine a lot of Americans will feel the same way, including, by the way, I would guess you, Garrett.
Oh, I certainly would. And this is, like I said, I think the FBI needs to be abolished. And there are plenty of issues with this search warrant, which again is why it was one of my protected disclosures. Maybe we're just getting too nuanced. And like you said, we're running out of time here. But again,
come on back and we'll take it up. Come on back and we'll take up. I'm sort of a direct fellow myself. Nuance is sometimes, to me, obfuscation. And so I like to get to the heart of a matter. And I try to do that every night here. I think you should come back and we should have a talk straight up and straightforwardly about why in the hell the FBI looks like a gangster organization, not an agency of the Justice Department.
There certainly is a lot of reasons that they look that way.
Garrett, thanks so much for being with us. Come on back soon. But before we go, we've got some uplifting news for you. As you know, Mike Lindell has a passion to help you get the best sleep of your life after he invented the world's best pillow. Mike created the famous Giza Dream Sheets. They're the best sheets you will ever sleep on. My wife and I have been sleeping on them for years. They are the best ever. Your best night's sleep just got even better. For a limited time, you will get a queen size set of Giza sheets for $59.98. $59.98. King size, just $10 more. Those are the lowest prices in history. Mike and MyPillow employees continue to be canceled by the big box stores and attacked by the national left-wing media, and they do appreciate all of your great support during these times and want to thank you by giving you free shipping on your entire order today. To get the best specials ever, go to mypillow.com or call 800-977-9152 and use promo code Dobbs, D-O-B-B-S. You get the famous Giza Dream Sheets, queen size, $59.98, king size, $10 more. So call 800-977-9152 or go to mypillow.com, promo code Dobbs to get your free shipping on your entire order today. And join us for my podcast, The Great America Show, each and every day. Thanks for being with us. Join us here Monday at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 Central. Independent journalist Laura Loomer will be here, and the executive director of the Foundation for Freedom Online, Mike Benz. You don't want to miss it, not a bit of it. Next up is Mike Lindell. Stay with us. Good night. God bless you, and God bless America.